Good morning, everyone. Another beautiful day here at Gulfstream Park. Beautiful weather, sunny skies, a little breeze right now, and a high of about 80 degrees. Main track is listed as fast, the turf course firm, and always the Tapeta, always the same condition for that surface. Ashley joined with Brian Nady today on this edition of Gulfstream Today. Brian, yesterday, interesting the way the Rainbow Six played out.
Yeah, we got to the finale yesterday with no live tickets, so nothing was alive. So we'll start today with a $100,000 gross guarantee in the pool. We paid it out on Sunday with a pool of over $6 million, $25,000 in change. So those fortunate enough to hit it, and it'll grow pretty quickly as it does day in and day out down here, Ashley.
Yeah, I had to look for consolations tomorrow. As you mentioned, no 6 out of 6 tickets at all in the Rainbow Six, $100,000 guarantee. 9 races in total on tap today. We'll kick things off with a $16,000 maiden claiming event going 7 furlongs on the dirt. This is the start of the early pick 5, and I know you put a ticket together.
Yeah, I've got a $30 ticket early. We'll spread in the opener. We'll talk about it in a second. 2-5 in that order in race 2. 4-6 with in race 3. Today's the day for Mama Longlegs in race 4. A single on the 0 for 26 lifetime maiden, but my goodness, she looks like she's in a now or never kind of spot today. And then in the finale, the get out leg, I go outside my long shot play of the day. Do Wop Don at 12-1 on the line for Mary Epler in a tough race. Looking for a price there.
Yeah, you're looking for the price. I'm looking for my best bet in race 5. But I think looking at the way that you kick off the sequence here in race 1 in this maiden claiming event, it's a wide open event. You went 5 deep in here. I could see using multiple horses as well. And let's start with your top pick in here, the number 3, Billy Yank, who last time out was 3rd for Joe Orsino at the 12-5 level. Now making that 3rd start off the layoff.
Yeah, and the top 2 ran 1-2, 2-1 the entire way. So Billy Yank didn't really have a fair go of it. The track was very speedy that day, too. I mean, 0 for 12 with 5 underneath finishes, but you look at the rest of this field, and, you know, there's a lot of them like that, and they're very, very tough to trust. Tyler says, sure, I'll ride again for Joe Orsino, and just maybe today, 13th time is the day.
Yeah, and you mentioned 5 for 12 in the money, but 5 for 9 on the main track here. So has had more success on the dirt than in the turf. Next horse that you use in second, I use on tops, the number 6, Ziggy. This one out of the Jorge Delgado barn, who finished second last time out, well beaten by Merzaz in there, but he was simply much the best. This one was part of that pace scenario. Cutback probably will help Ziggy.
Yeah, and I think Ziggy's loose, right? I mean, I don't see a lot of speed in here. I can't really envision Sleeping Empire showing a lot of speed on debut for Happy Altar. So I would think Ziggy is loose and controlling, but we've said that about Ziggy before, and it hasn't seen it out. So a definite must-use, but like I said, I'm spreading in here.
And then I go to the number 8, Mighty Tough for Tim Hills. I thought 2 starts back, a pretty nice second place finish. Big thing there. That race was on the Tapeta, though. Getting back to the dirt and has limited dirt experience, just that one start. It'll be interesting to see how this horse kind of transfers over, but I think that race 2 back's good enough to win.
Yeah, the Tapeta form here plays. I mean, it's predominantly better than this group of late, but like you mentioned, the dirt races, they're few and far between, and the one was not pretty at all when he lost the jock, so maybe he can do better. It's just a tough race to really gravitate to anybody. That's why I'm spreading 5 deep.
We'll move on to race 2, a 5 furlong turf sprint. This is a maiden optional claimer, $40,000. So this is for 4-year-olds and upward, Florida breds, or maiden claiming with the price of $40,000. And looking at this group, we use a lot of the same horses, have the super box here. We'll start with the number 2, Pulsar from Mike Tomlinson. 3rd last time out, finished 3rd, beaten by 4 lengths. Just directly in front of this one was Rogers Ginger, but this one was making up some ground late.
Yeah, on the Tapeta last time, if you look at the turf sprint 3 back, it was a pretty sharp effort, a close 3rd at Indiana Grand in a special weight. Jose Ortiz is going to get aboard. We saw him win 5 on Sunday, so that's, you know, I always just think there's some intent here. You reach out and you get a big-time jockey like that, and Mike has run a limited amount of starters at the meet, but they've all run pretty well, albeit not winning ones, but they're hitting the board and they're firing, so I would think Pulsar fires one today.
And a big step for the barn, second off 45 to 180 180 days, 22%. Now, I want the horse directly inside the number 1, Rogers Ginger. You look at the trainers in here. Mike Maker sends out a pair. So does Mark Cassie. This one finished second last time out at the level that, as I mentioned, exiting that same race as Pulsar. I thought it was a good finish, was kind of mid-pack early on and showed some late foot, but I really liked the race 2 back on the turf at Aqueduct. This one was flying late in a deep field and finished 4th, beaten by just over a length.
Yeah, a player in here, I just don't know if that running style is going to work going 5, so I would think Luis Saez knows to be near down down inside. He's going to have to put some speed into this son of Will Take Charge, because that's not going to cut it coming from last in a more expansive Aqueduct turf course, a much tighter, sharper, snappier Gulfstream turf course here. But I do think this horse is in the mix, a much better post than he had that day as well at Aqueduct.
And the other horse for Mike Maker, the number 5, Charleston Strong, was part of that pace scenario last time out after having some time off. That was going 7.5, so today is going to cut back in distance and had a good performance, or at least it started off okay, going 5.5 on the grass. The big thing, though, the cutback today.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with this horse. I played him a few times in New York, and Jeremiah couldn't get him to the winner's circle, and Mike Maker's now claimed him at a couple starts, and he ran very well last time. That was going 2 turns. One of these days he'll get it done, and I think you have to use him here, but he's probably going to be overbet, and the losses are starting to add up too.
We'll touch upon the number 7 Ghost Liner real quick for Mark Cassie. This one, the form hasn't been the greatest. 2 starts back was probably one of the better efforts. That was over the Tapeta up at Woodbine, but last time out certainly fell flat as the favorite.
Yeah, that race 2 back just stands out, and you're kind of wondering if it's the exception as opposed to the rule. I mean, he fires an 87 Beyer, which is a month better than anything he's ever done. Now, he got to the dirt last time, and he didn't run at all. I don't know what you get from Ghost Liner today. It's a positive. He's not in for the tag. He doesn't have to be as the Florida bred. In IRADs here, you're going to get another underlaid price. I'm kind of willing to fade this horse just a little bit.
Yeah, you look at that race 2 back, a big Beyer because he went quite fast early on in there. The winner and the 3rd place finisher, they both came back to win next time out. But again, on the Tapeta up at Woodbine, getting back to the turf today for the first time in a while. Race 3 is where we'll move next, an allowance event. This is an interesting field of 3-year-olds, 7 furlongs on the main track. I was curious to see which direction you went in. I thought you might use the 2 or the 4 on top, but you start out to the outside, the number 6, Clapton.
Yeah, we've got a replay. It's our first one to show here, and Clapton's a number 3 horse. You're going to see him make a big middle move, and I think he paid the price for it. Here's a couple duelers up front, and Cyber Viking's not even in your screen right now, and he's going to swoop them all late. And Clapton did the dirty work this day, and he moved early into a hot pace. And, you can argue he ran a better race than there, ran every bit as good as Cyber Viking, who's still not even in your picture. And Cyber Viking is a nice quality 3-year-old that's very, very useful. And here's Clapton getting to the front and trying to kick clear and paid the price late. I thought this was a good effort. I thought this was maybe a little bit better than it looked. Kind of, oh, yeah, he ran second, beaten almost 5 lengths. No, I thought he ran pretty big this day. Now he's outside with the right attack post. Jose Ortiz is here. We're going to put the Lasix on today as well. And maybe he offers a hint of value in a tough race. This is a really, salty group for these Florida breds, Ashley. I mean, Gloucester was very, very good on debut, and now he comes back facing winners. Bird Wildcat was good last time. This is a solid group for this level.
And you kind of look at the field overall, a lot of them dabbled in the Florida Sire Stakes.
Yeah.
The 2 horses that you just mentioned, Bird Wildcat and Gloucester, not doing that, but a lot of the others in the field have. Clapton, he was one that he tried in most of the races. 2 out of the 3 for the division. He had to face his, stablemate in the sense that Arundel owned and bred Octane as well. He faced horses such as Catton, who raced really well, Lightning Larry. So for him, in some regard, I think this is a little bit of a softer spot. Now, you mentioned the number 4, Gloucester, who's pretty impressive on debut here with a 71 Beyer speed figure going 5.5. Sat off the pace just right early on, but made that move and was able to draw clear by over 5 lengths. Today's going to stretch out.
Yeah, he stretches out. He faces winners, and it's kind of the wedding and the funeral angle. And he was 12s on his debut, and he wins off, and now he's a much shorter price today. And it's not that I don't trust him. I'm just wondering if maybe he comes back a little bit. There wasn't much in that race he beat, and that was such a seismic effort that day that I'm just wondering maybe at a short price it's worth trying to take a stab against him. And if nothing else, Clapton will offer a little bit of a value. Maybe you get 4-1 on him, and he can settle outside. I'm going to try. I respect Gloucester, and if he runs back to that race, he's going to be tough.
And then mentioning one other here, the second choice on the morning line, the number 2, Bird Wildcat for Ron Spatz. Was second last time out. I thought it was pretty valiant in defeat. Was not only stretching out in distance, but tried the Tapeta and only missed by a head in there at kind of a price on the board, 6-1.
Yeah, and Super Legacy was, I believe, odds on that day for Cassie and Live Oak, and he's going to step up and face some big boys on Saturday on that awesome Holy Bull card. So the race plays, don't forget, though, was on the Tapeta. It was going 2 turns. The body of work on the main track, it's solid enough, don't get me wrong. It's a little bit below the rest of these, though, I think.
We'll move on, though. Race 4 is going to kick off the Rainbow Six. So before we get there, we will take a short break here for commercials and then come back with Ron's ticket.
in the 2-path. Ground on Ortiz side. Race. A quarter of a mile to go, and he's 6 yards out. It's last of the 12 as they roll into the backstretch.
Welcome back to Gulfstream Park today. Brian and Ashley here. We're going to kick off the Rainbow Six in race number 4. It's a $16,000 maiden claiming event at 5.5 furlongs on the Tapeta. It's for fillies and mares 4 and up. Ron's not on the morning show, but we do have his ticket to show here, and I'm curious to see if it is that magical number of 4320, and it is today. It wasn't yesterday.
It was not.
He has 3 runners in here. The number 1, Mama Longlegs, so I know you like the 2, Bet on Drama, and the 3, I Love Magel. He also uses 3 runners in race 5, and he kind of scatters down a little bit in race 6, just 2 runners in that 3rd leg. He goes to the number 2, Giverny, as well as the number 6, Heels Together. Race 7 at 3 deep in there. And then looking at the last 2 races, a lot of eyes are going to be on race 8 today with the return of Pass the Champagne to the races. She's the 8. He also uses the horse directly to her outside, the number 9, Midnight Ballerina. And to wrap it up, 2 deep in the nightcap, so 43.20 for Ron's Rainbow Six ticket. We'll dive more in here into race number 4, a field of 7. I know I'm going to let you kick it off. You really like Mama Longlegs today. You're single in that early pick 5, and she's had her fair share of chances, but she does look to be part of that pace scenario.
February 3rd, 2022 is the day when she gets it done. We're going to take a replay look, too. And you know what? She's over 26. I get it. Hey, Caladad was over 20. She won yesterday. So here she is on the engine here, and the race falls apart, but she stuck around nicely. And listen, she's over 26. I get it all. But as I mentioned yesterday, water does find its own level. And Mama Longlegs might have found a group today that she's going to be able to handle. Paco or send her away from there. She's loose in here. Maybe she forgets to stop. I thought this was a big effort because no one else around her early. Closers were 6, 7, 8 early. They ran 1, 2, 3. And she stuck around. She was 4th. It was one of those days where I don't think the inside was great on the Tapeta. We're going to get her home today, Ashley. Oh. If she doesn't, I might never be on the air again. I don't know. This is not my kind of play, admittedly.
It's interesting to look at her, too. The big thing here, she looks to be kind of loose on the lead if she wants to be. It's interesting, though. Chantel Sutherland aboard last time out. Looks like she took the 4 in here. Maybe she didn't have a choice, but the 4, Looking for Love, has been kind of close to the pace in her last 2 starts as well. So Mama Longlegs didn't make the cut for me, and my top pick didn't make the cut for you. I'm going with the price in here as well. The number 5, Senorita Salsa, is another horse that she's had her fair share of chances. I just like seeing Luca Benici back in the saddle today. Was not aboard that most recent performance, and I think when you start to look at races 3 to 5 starts back, especially at the 5.5 furlong distance, she's had some good trips. Now, you also notice when you go down her past performances, she's faced several horses in here, and that's kind of the story. A lot of these mares have squared off. And I think on a good day, she gets a trip just off your horse in here.
Yeah, Luca's done good work with her. You're right. I mean, you look through her PPs, and he's been the best aboard her. 0 for 18, but it's that kind of race. And you're right, she is going to trip out. And if Mama Longlegs gets a little late, which she's been known to do about 26 times, Senorita Salsa could be in a good spot.
And the one thing we apparently agree on is for second, the number 3, I Love Magel, who last time out was 3rd, just beaten by 2 lengths in the first start for the New Connections. She was dropping down in class. She was trying the synthetic, and she seemed to wake up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, she's one of the closers that ran by Mama Longlegs. So, I mean, that was the flow of the race. So it's kind of neat that we showed that replay. You can kind of see what was going on in that race. And she kind of took advantage of the flow, whereas Mama Longlegs, I think, was against it a little bit. We'll see what we get. Only 0 for 7 is not a bad thing.
We'll move on to race 5, which kicks off the late pick 5. It's a $10,000 claiming event for 4-year-olds and upward. 5.5 furlongs on the Tapeta. I know in here, I think you use a price a little bit doo-wopped on. It is a big field, so I'm curious to see your ticket here.
Yeah, just $15 because we've got, past the Champagne is going to be very, very short. Maybe 1 to 5, 1 to 2 kind of thing. So we'll spread early for a price. Hopefully, like you mentioned, Duop, Don, Giverny in race 6 on top. Used a couple in there, back-to-back singles. Old Town Road is my best bet of the day. I'm going to try to add some value to him because I'm not sure what kind of price he'll be in there. And then we spread a little bit in the get-out race, Pardon My Heart down inside for Cassie and Gaffalione, and what's a pretty solid turf race.
2 singles in the late pick 5, $15 play, but I'm curious to dive in more into race 5. It is a big field. I see you went 5 deep in here, and I'm curious to see who you used on top. You went to the number 8, just going through a long shot in here, Duop Don. And on his best days, Brian, he had 3 wins right in a row. He broke his maiden, picked up his second and third lifetime wins, and pretty much they were all impressive.
Yeah, he's okay, right? I mean, he's obviously got to prove it on the Tapeta, but Mary Epler claimed him 2 back, and she ran him in against Florida Bred Optional Allowance Company, a good race where he wasn't in for the tag. Didn't work out. Now he's in for 10, so she's still not giving him away. She claimed him for 62.52 back. Kenny Tapeta, I don't know, but I have a little, Officer Country and Marcelino, who you have 1-2, and I have 2-3. I respect them. I just wonder if they come back off those 2 big wins, which is kind of better than anything they've done recently.
You've mentioned one Mary Epler horse. Let's go to Officer Country, my top pick in here. Thought the performance last time out on the Tapeta was quite strong. Had some pace to run at, a pretty solid half for that group and that level to pick up that third lifetime win. Hasn't missed the board on the Tapeta. It really seems like having those 2.5 months off between Delaware Park and here served him well. And the big thing with him, he's going to be closing late, so he'll need enough pace early.
Yeah, and there's some in here. There's no doubt. And Mary's, we've seen a lot of these barns that aren't necessarily getting to the winner's circle, but the horses are running, and she's got good underneath finishes. And this one comes in off a big, big win last time. Wouldn't be any surprise at all, but we do step up and out of the restricted race.
Yeah, is stepping up today to kind of that open competition. That's not necessarily the case for the number 3, Marcelina, who already has a win on the year. Won here last time out on January 8th, kind of in that front-end fashion. He beat Grand Malbec, who's back in this race today. He was close to the pace last time out. He doesn't necessarily need to be. We've seen him try to rate a bit more, but he's a 6-year-old gelding who's won 6 in his lifetime.
Very versatile, and Amador Sanchez is having himself a championship meet. 6 or 22, 5/3, a second in there as well. Popped at 25-1 earlier in the meet as well. So everything the barn has sent out, and it's not a barn maybe you hear a lot about, so you can kind of sometimes get good prices on their horses. Boy, he's been very, very good.
And quickly, I just want to touch upon the number 6, Macho Blue. First off the claim for Liz Dobles, who does well with new acquisitions in the barn, just about a third of the time winning. Haven't seen him in quite some time. You have to go all the way back to March of 2021, but was in deeper waters. They obviously claimed this one for 25, dropping today. Some of those races were lightning quick.
I used them, but as you alluded to, the plan wasn't to claim them for a quarter in March and run them first time for 10 in February. So, tread lightly, take it for what it's worth. It would be a very, very good sign, especially for Imaginary Stables, who does such a good job. It would be a very, very good sign if the money shows. If it doesn't show, ooh, I would run for the hills.
Yeah, we'll have to find out later today in race 5. We'll move on to the 6th race, a maiden special weight competition, fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up. Sprinting again on the grass today, 5 furlongs. Thought it was an interesting way to start the pick 4. I know you had some strong opinions in here. I did put a ticket together, and I used 3 in here. I used the 2, 4, and the 6. We'll show a stat that I thought was interesting for the number 4, Ventriloquist for Safi Joseph Jr. Race 7, 3 deep as well. You like the number 3, Old Town Road. I do as well. I like the 4, Bueno Bueno, and my top pick being the number 1, Gone Nuts. I'm with you. Past the Champagne looks awfully tough in race number 8, so I decided to signal. I did think about using the number 10, Psychic Ability, but I just went with Past the Champagne there. Then to wrap it up, I'm with you. I think it's kind of wide open. I think we used kind of most of the same horses here. I think I added one more in there, which is the number 5, Super Lunar for Marty Drexler. Thought with it being such a light play, $18 was fine to play in the late pick 4. So that's my ticket there. But diving in here deeper into race number 6 and the way this field looks in this turf sprint, for me, I kind of went back and forth. I think the Bill Mott runner, the number 2, does look good in here.
Yeah, we were going to have Ron do a guest analysis of this race to say Giverny, but he declined. He was still in the office. You know what? I just kind of think this horse will come back running, and There's some others in here who have had their chances, and Giverny was pretty okay on debut. There's not a lot of pedigree here. Second full out of the dam. The other one was okay. The dam herself was 3 for 31. She did earn almost $300,000. It's Mott, 22% off the long layoff bill is. Junior Alvarado, main man, is here. And I just kind of think a bigger, stronger, tougher version of this 4-year-old daughter of Tappet is going to be tough in here.
And you mentioned just one race as a 3-year-old now off the long layoff. I went to the outside, which is kind of a similar story. It's had some long layoffs. That's the number 6, Heels Together. Christophe Clement, the conditioner here. Blinkers on today, also going to cut back in distance and try the turf for the first time. You know, Christophe was quite well in turf sprints, kind of his game. It is concerning to see she races, then she has a gap. She races the same sort of story every single time. Last time out when she raced at Aqueduct, she finished okay, mid-pack in that event. It was a pretty productive race, to say the least. I'm hoping the surface can change things for her.
Yeah, she comes out of some salty races, right? I agree, and I don't really view this as a layoff anymore. You might see the line in there. It's not a layoff anymore. But so now, to me, she's second off. Blinkers go on from the outside. She's drawn well. Christophe, I think we showed the stat yesterday. He's about 28, 29% sprinting on the turf at Gulfstream the last 3 or 4 years. So I think there's a lot of positives here. She hasn't really made a dent, but I do think maybe with the exception of the 2 Giverny, this is definitely the lightest group she's faced so far.
Now, the filly I think that's the most intriguing in this race is the number 4 Ventriloquist. This one trained by Safi Joseph Jr. I'll show the stat here. She's going to wear blinkers for the first time in her career. Looking at the past year with maidens that are wearing blinkers for the first time, Safi wins at 26% from a sample size of 43, in the money about 44% of the time with a $2.10 ROI. I think that's something to note, but also she's had her fair crack at this maiden special weight level, and they seem like they don't want to leave that condition. So they're going to cut back in distance and hopefully get her back on track, which to me suggests Safi thinks there's some potential.
Yeah, just does he also think he's throwing something at the wall and hoping it sticks here too? Because as you alluded to, she's had her chances. Routing on the Tapeta, routing on the turf. Now, the one thing I will say in her favor, we know Safi is, he's 12, 13% on debut. It's not his angle. So I think you can be more forgiving of her only turf sprint. It came on debut. She was an okay 4th. It was solid enough. It was a good race. Second place horse came back to win. So now she's obviously a better horse now. She's more mature. You showed the stat with the blinkers. Maybe she wakes back up and you can be forgiving of that lone run. It was from the rail too.
And, kind of looking at, too, you mentioned the runner-up came back to win next time out. Baby Mo, she's kind of held her own in turf sprinting here. We've seen her in her last couple starts at Gulfstream Park. So just interesting to note. And also, Irad Ortiz in the saddle. Never a bad thing when Safi and Irad team up. 38% here at Gulfstream Park. We'll move on to race 7 next. 5.5 furlongs on the Tapeta in the starter optional claimant event for 3-year-olds. This field, I know you have strong opinions. We'll kick it off. My second choice in here, who I thought about putting on top, that's the number 3 Old Town Road for Amador Sanchez. Claimed this one 2 starts back for $50,000 off of Wesley Ward, and then they decided to take a chance on the stake at Tampa.
I love that, right? They took him up to Tampa in $100,000 stakes right off the claim. Okay, it didn't work out. That's fine, but now Jose's going to get aboard. Jose Ortiz, he's back with friends in here. And the other thing about this race, the rest of this field all want to go early. Gone Nuts, Sovereign of Speed, Bueno, Living Water, they all want to be involved in some way, shape, or form. I know we're only going 5.5. I know it's a snappy trip. To me, it's got to melt down, and here's a horse that fits the flow of the race with an ace rider aboard in a barn that's winning, as we talked about earlier, at a really, really sharp level. Catton, Lightning Larry, I think you had him as your best bet that one day down here. There's a lot to like about Old Town Road.
Yeah, he certainly faced horses that performed well here at Gulfstream Park. You mentioned Catton for Ralph Nix, Lightning Larry, both really nice horses. So interesting to see them take that stance. It's also interesting to know this is one of 2 for Amador Sanchez in the field. Both were claimed to Keeneland the same day from Wesley Ward and actually raced against each other. Now, I went to the one in ear Gone Nuts for Mark Cassie, who had a pretty strong debut, finished 3rd, beaten by 2 lengths behind Nerve and Nonay Franklin. Then just really didn't show anything on the dirt. I should say, sorry, that field that was in September. Had to look at the date there. So I'm going to draw a line through that race 2 back. Obviously, next time out and most recently, took to the Tapeta quite nicely. Was kind of much the best in there at the maiden special weight level. And to me, the Buyer stands out. I use Buyer speed figures. That's good to see, as well as the most recent work.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely figures off that last race. If you want to nitpick a little bit, you could say, where has he been? There's been
Right.
plenty of races for him. He's down inside. That could be tricky as well. But if he breaks and then everybody goes, maybe he can work out a trip, 3 deep, stalking the pace. He's a player in here for sure. And the big number in Cassie and Lasix goes on, that's not going to hurt either. So I do think he's in here.
And then finally, the number 4, Bueno Bueno, owned by Calumet Farm, trained by Jack Sisterson. Tried the Limehouse last time out at Gulfstream Park here on New Year's Day. Didn't fare too well, but I think when you consider maybe second off in that race 2 back on the turf, as long as he handles the Tapeta, it might be kind of the pace scenario in here as well.
Yeah, and it's not the end-all, be-all that you're going to handle turf, so you're going to handle Tapeta, but it's a relatively decent measuring stick, and this horse freaked at Ellis on his lone start on the turf. It was sprinting. He's fast. If he catches a flyer, he might not come back to this field. I just don't think you're winning this race on the front end.
Race 8 is up next, kind of the feature race of the day, an allowance optional claiming event for fillies and mares 4 and up. 7 furlongs is the distance on the main track. And no surprise here, Brian, we both go to the number 8, Past the Champagne, trained by George Weaver, who hasn't been seen since a disappointing run in the Kentucky Oaks, but this is a grade 1 placed filly.
Yeah, we're going to show the replay of the Ashland and where she ran huge. She made first run, and much like the replay we showed earlier with Clapton, she makes first run in here as the 2-horse down inside, and here's Malathat, soon to be champion 3-year-old filly, is going to run her down. But this was her coming out party. It didn't work in the Kentucky Oaks. She had just a terrible trip and start, draw a line through it. George Weaver's regrouped with her. I mean, you would have to think this barn thinks she's going to have a big 4-year-old campaign. This was a huge run. She's back at 7 today. Yes, she could need it, but she absolutely lays over this field, and I just thought it was tough to come up with anybody else, layoff and all.
Yeah, kind of looking at the field, there's only a couple horses that have fared well in stakes competition. She's the only one that fared well in grade 1 waters. You mentioned Malathat would go on to win the Kentucky Oaks and had a strong 3-year-old season. And another thing I wanted to show here was just a stat for George Weaver. This is an extended layoff. She hasn't been seen since late April of 2021. And over the past year, kind of interesting to see, George Weaver's had this angle quite a few times over a layoff of 6 months to a year. He's 5 for 20, 25% in terms of wins, 40% in the money with $1.92 ROI. So just kind of is a testament to what he does with his horses, able to get them ready at first asking off the long layoff. Now, from here, different directions you can go to. Directly to the outside's the number 9, Midnight Ballerina for Bill Mott, who finished second last time out here at Gulfstream Park. That was at a mile. Going to cut back a little bit today.
Yeah, I mean, she's fine. She's moving forward. She's still lightly raced. Like Past the Champagne, she's 1 for 4, too. She seems to be going that way in her form. She was flattered a little bit last time by, the winner was loose that day, and they just ran around the track together. But she's solid enough, and if for whatever reason Past the Champagne, sometimes these fillies don't come back like they left, and, that's a fair. If Past the Champagne needs it, if she doesn't feel like firing today, Midnight Ballerina is one of the few in here that I think has a race in her. If she moves forward, that could be a contender.
I'm looking at a race on January 8th. 2 horses exit that. The number 10, Psychic Ability. The number 6, Sprout Wings. We each use one of them. I'll start with the outside horse in here for Safi Joseph Jr. Only had this horse in the barn for 1 start. She had some time off, significant time to say the least, and she was favored last time out. I thought it was a good second place finish from her. She was still well beaten by My Destiny. And also, Sprout Wings ran pretty well in there as well.
Yeah, she was my best bet of the day, Psychic Ability. I loved her that day, and I don't want to be too hard on her because you mentioned it was off the layoff. It was first-time Safi. She had a hint of trouble, not any excuse at all that would have made her a win. But, she can move forward. I would expect her to move forward. I just thought last time, first-time Safi, we know how good he is. I thought she was a little flat.
She was a little flat, and I think in the case of the number 6, Sprout Wings, to me, showed a bit more versatility. Wasn't as close to the pace early on, but still tried to hang in there for a minor share at best. Now going to make the first start for the new connections, Bobby DeBona.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby's solid, and he doesn't claim a ton of horses, so I always think, the ones he dips in for, there's definitely something he likes. She's going to be second off the layoff as well. She's got speed, too. She's versatile. She can move forward in here.
She's got a nice work on January 22nd. 47-3, the 9th fastest at that 4 furlong distance out of almost 120 workers. So it'll be interesting to see how race 8 stacks up in there. Past the Champagne obviously looks awfully tough. We'll move on to the nightcap. Race number 9, 1 mile on the turf, $20,000 claimers, non-winners of 2 life. We pretty much had the same horses in here based on our tickets. I had a feeling we'd have the same kind of 4 in here, almost ice cold. Both went to the number 1, Pardon My Heart, for Mark Cassie, a horse returning off an extended layoff. Last time out, though, faced tougher.
Yeah, these are the ones you just got to figure out the order, right? And I just like the post down here with Pardon My Heart. She showed more speed last time as well. It's Cassie, Tyler Gaffalione. The layoff is problematic. I get it, but look at the workouts. Mark's 18% off this extended layoff. Tyler's kind of his go-to guy, at least on turf. I know he rides Edmund Gonzalez a lot on the Tapeta. I just think there's reasons to think Pardon My Heart comes back running today.
Then we agree with the next horse as well. Yep. The number 8, Katie's Dream Girl, out of the Ralph Nix barn. This one tried starter allowance competition last time out. That was sprinting on the dirt. Prior to that, they've tried some different things with her. It's been a bit since she's been on the turf, but looking at her races, she's done quite well locally here on the grass.
Yeah, and I think that's the angle, right? I mean, she's going to come back on the turf now. Ralph's had a very, very hot start. It's not even a start anymore. We're 2 months in now, and he just keeps on firing. Irad Ortiz lands here, so there's plenty of reason to think this daughter of young Brian fires.
And we'll wrap up with the number 2, Capstone Girl, out of the Jeremiah Englehart barn, was second last time out after having just about 2 months off. That was at this level, going 1 mile and 70 yards on the Tapeta. Beat Rosa Star, who was originally in this field as well. I thought it was a good performance. Still will need a bit more today.
Yeah, she's got to win on the turf. That helps, right? And Jeremiah brought a select group down here this winter, and obviously to run on the Tapeta, to run on the turf, the fact that he puts her back on here, second off a little bit of a layoff, I think she can run well in here.
Well, that's how we see the 9-race Thursday card. We're not done yet. We still have the lightning round to get to. A couple items on here today, Brian. And we've talked a lot about Past the Champagne, but this is kind of the feature on today's card when we look at it.
Yeah, and it's cool to see her coming back. It's a Thursday, you know, and you see a Grade 1 stakes placed horse in here and a filly that did good things. Here's the Ashland again, and again, Malathat, your soon-to-be 3-year-old filly champion, comes back, and as you mentioned, wins the Kentucky Oaks. She wins the Alabama up at Saratoga. She ran very, very well in the distaff at Del Mar against older fillies and mares. So this is a big, big effort, and this is a horse that, you know, if everything breaks right for her this year, she's supposed to do a lot of big things.
Yeah, and that's a big thing to point out here. This is the starting point, and we'll see from here what's next for Past the Champagne. And kind of moving just 2 days from now, Saturday, a big day of racing here. The Holy Bull is on Saturday, and it's a 9-horse field, but Brian, it is a deep field with a lot of talent.
I mean, it's early February, and the Derby preps are just starting to get going. You typically, in this day and age we're living in, you don't see these kind of races that much. This is a phenomenal field. I mean, Mo Donegal comes in off that Remsen win at Aqueduct to end his 2-year-old campaign. Giant Game wakes up with a huge third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile out at Del Mar. White Barrio, Tiz the Bomb's going to try to prove it on dirt, but he's got a huge dirt win. Cajun's Magic, Simplification is so good on his day for Antonio Sano. Boy, this is a really, really good race for where we are, and it gets us to the Fountain of Youth, and we're never too early to think Florida Derby either.
I think you named almost all the horses in the field right there. You mentioned Simplification, the winner of the Mucho Macho Man, Cajun's Magic. Talk about a hard-knocking horse who went through all 3 legs of the Florida Sire Stakes, never finishing worse than second. So he's probably the local horse that a couple of us are rooting for. White Barrio was undefeated in those first 2 starts for Safi, then tried, stakes competition, didn't fare too well, but they've been pointing for this race for a while, so it's a big field of 9, and the talent is certainly there.
Yeah, and just quickly, the one I didn't even mention, Galt's half the Songbird, right? So, yeah, look out.
Yeah, the waters are deep, but the Holy Bull, we'll move on to the next item on the lightning round. That's just one of 5 stakes here this weekend. We have 4 other graded stakes. You see the Claiborne Swale, Grade 3, the Kitten's Joy, the Forward Gal, and the Swedish Chant.
Yeah, it's all for 3-year-olds on Saturday, and that's exciting. And I know Forward Gal's got a hot runner for Shug coming back, 2 for 2, and the Swale has got a lot of talented young sprinters. Kitten's Joy, I love that 3-year-old turf division, and then the fillies going long too.
It's been a busy week. We had Pegasus last Saturday, now Holy Bull weekend. A lot to look forward to here at Gulfstream Park. And also, if you're joining us on Saturday, another item, there's a giveaway item for XP Rewards members. It's a pullover fleece with the Gulfstream Park logo on it.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool, right? I'm hoping to get one in the office myself.
We're going to have to see what we can do to kind of steal a couple of those from somewhere. But it's in the Breezeway Bar from 1 to 4 this Saturday. Sign up for XP Rewards and wager $50, and you'll receive this free Gulfstream Park pullover. That's the lightning round for Thursday. We'll be back with Ron Nicoletti throughout the afternoon. We'll send this up to Pete Aiello in a few to get the changes for today's card.
I remember the first time I came to Gulfstream, it was like this big fairy tale place.
We back.
Northern Dancer, winner of the Florida Derby.
Yeah.
All the history, all these great horses, trainers, jockeys.
It is Barbaro to the final furlong. He is a neck in front. Barbaro wins!
It was everything that I ever dreamed of.
Sunday silence surges to the front.
First day, opening day of the championship meet, I was kind of starstruck. You're watching LeBron James, and then next thing you know, you're playing basketball against him. That's how I felt when I'm riding with Donnie V, riding with Irad, Luis.
So many famous people come, Post Malone, Pharrell, J-Lo was there. It's epic.
The weather is beautiful. The facility is phenomenal.
It's all about Knicks Go. Knicks Go makes it 4 in a row.
It's one of the most beautiful tracks in the country, surrounded by some of the greatest horses and riders. It's amazing.
I grew up in Louisiana. My dad was a jockey, and my grandfather was a trainer. My grandfather trained in the backyard, so he had a barn behind the trailer house that we lived in. And so every afternoon when I'd get off the school bus, I was straight to the barn doing chores. I was an only child with no other kids around. You know, horses, looking back now, I didn't know then, but they were therapy for me. I just cherish them, they're best thing could have happened to me.